first of all, hey, thanks a lot for coming on. I really appreciate it. I saw recently on social media that you had retired, and retirees are perfect for this podcast because they can speak a little more openly than on active duty. I had a couple active duty guys that were getting ready to get out, and they were a little guarded. And then I've had some other guys that are like, "Let me get out of the military first, then I'll come on, and then I can say what I want," because they don't want to jeopardize their career or say anything wrong, or which is understandable. I totally get that. So I saw that you retired. I was like, you have had a very diverse career, and I thought you'd be an awesome guest. So I can't thank you enough for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. For full transparency, technically that was the ceremony, but man, I'm full send. I won't hold any punches, but one Jan
Oh
is
yeah, so
that.
technically you're on. You're still okay.
Yeah. So if I wanted to, smoke it up, I gotta wait till January. So, but yeah, all good, man, all good. Appreciate you having me on. Been hearing about you for years. So
Well, hey, let's dig in then. I had noticed that you and I share this one thing in common. We both came in when
Mhm.
we were 17. So let's start from there. Tell me about how you grew up. What prompted you to want to go in so early? I know we had to get our parents to sign the waiver, and we couldn't do it on our own. So yeah, go from there. Tell me about all that stuff, and we'll take it chronologically through your career.
Yeah, man. So starting out, San Antonio, Texas, born and raised, played football ever since I was 5 years old. Single mom, didn't grow up with the dad, and that'll come, a little bit more into the story later on. But my biggest mentors were one guy, Jeremy Tolliver. His dad was actually the chief of Randolph, and he was security forces, and he was a big reason why I came in. Growing up, he was like the rich kid. You had like a parent that was in the military, and he had the cars, he had the snacks, he had everything. And so I was like, man, I'm trying to, I'm trying to live like that when I grew up. And obviously my grandpa, he was in the army, he served in Vietnam, but between those two, I knew I wanted to go into the military. I didn't know which branch. My grandpa was Army. He was like, "Hey, man, go to the Air Force." So I started matriculating that way. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but this is like 12 years old at the time, and when I first heard about what he was doing, he was a cop, and when I was little, I just wanted a gun. I was like, man, I just want a gun.
Right.
I want to protect people. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I grew up watching MacGyver. I knew I liked problem solving, and so I was like, man, I want to have a gun and I want to solve problems. And that's about all I knew. So kind of fast forward, I'm a senior, and everybody's like doing SATs, and I'm like, man, I'm getting burnt out of it's Texas football, right? Like, and the next thing you know, they're like, hey, man, if you go down the street, if you get picked up, it's gonna be like this except worse. And I was like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
So like, man, between going back to academia world, and I was like, man, I wanna pump the brakes on that. So it was a group of us. It was like 5 or 6 of us. We wanted to go into the military. Didn't know what we wanted to do, but we went into the buddy program, and we were like 17 right when we signed up. And so went into MEPS. I think I initially came in as like an electrical engineer or something like that, and I was just like, man, I scored fairly high on the ASVAB, and I was like, man, I want to do something physical. And they're like, all right, well, we got the security forces, and we have this pararescue, and we have this TACP. And I was just like, okay, let me talk to those dudes. Talk to the PJ. He was like, do you like blood and water? And I was like, I don't like blood. And he was like, do you like blood, and can you swim at least a quarter of a mile like without stopping? I was like, absolutely not, dude. I'm from Texas. I don't swim. Um, and so, went down the TACP route, and that's kind of how it started in 2000. Yeah,
Did you have to do like a tryout in basic, and who are the guys that were putting you through that?
man. So I think in Master Sergeant Washington,
Okay.
uh, black guy. I just remember going out there, and we were doing our, running around the track, and I seen these two guys doing quarter-mile sprints. I'm from Texas. I was on the track team. I was like, these guys are moving, and I actually was running around the track. And I remember we didn't have a watch, but I can't remember how I was able to time it. Somebody had a watch, and I was like, man, what are their times? And I mean, they were consistently hitting like, 115s. These are like older guys. Like, I'm a teenager. I was
Right.
like, 115 is pretty good for these old guys. They were doing like muscle ups before muscle ups even were a thing. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, who are they? And I just went over and went to go talk to them. And that's really what led. They were like, all right, come to this room at this time and we'll have some recruiting briefs about pararescue and TACP. I seen the TACP video. Washington showed that. I mean, it was people jumping out of planes. People were shooting guns. And I was like, check. That's like one of the things.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, we protect the joint force and with close air support. And obviously this is pre-GWOT. But I mean, there's jets flying around, and he said that one word like protect, and I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted to do, because I would always wanted to be a cop or like an FBI agent growing up, and I was like, man, those two things, and I was like, man, sign me up.
Yeah.
And finished basic, and then shipped off to Florida. That's what it started.
Were you part of the airborne program, or did you?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I remember, man, I get to Florida, first time I'm ever in a plane, for one, and my ears didn't equalize for like 3 weeks, and so I couldn't hear a damn thing, and I'm sitting here getting fussed at because they're like, hey, you're not paying attention, attention to detail, and I'm like, I can't hear anything, and so they finally equalized, and right in the beginning, I signed up for the airborne program. Trying to think, some of the instructors down there, Swells. I think BMAC had just left. I think maybe Harris, but Swells I was Eagle 5-4. He was our primary instructor.
Okay.
Down there, and yeah, they were like, "Hey, do you want to sign up for the airborne program?" He was like, "Remember that video you watched, and they were jumping out of planes?" I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah, let's do it." And that was the point. You were held at a different standard. That's kind of the time that we would be running, and a car would drive by, and they would wait till it was 200 meters past us. And they were like, Brown, Bassbinder, go catch that car. And I get to just take off on a dead sprint. We're already on mile like 5 or 6. I think that's my time that I truly understood like different standards in different organizations. Like looking back at it, and I was like, oh, this is a different expectation and a different standard that they want. And this airborne program, wherever it was going to go, held people to a higher standard. And I kind of knew that, playing football, especially in Texas, in a pretty big high school team, but this was at a different level. So yeah, was in that part of that airborne program, completed that, successfully got the wings, finished. So let me go back. Funny stories in tech school. I went through straight. There was a couple guys getting busted for dumb things, man, just escaping, trying to sneak out. I kept my nose clean because I was like, man, I'm not trying to like redo any of this. You know what I mean? There was times I was like, dude, like this is rough. Texas football, 110 weather, doing sprints, like that was hard. We had boot camps there, but this was on another level. And there was times I was like, man, do I want to keep going? But I was like, yeah, man, I that was a time I knew that I couldn't quit, because I think that's what kind of the coaches in Texas football instilled, and you just don't quit. You'd rather die than quit. And so kept going. But yeah, some of the stories, man, dudes were getting in trouble. Unfortunately it was, drugs, dudes getting busted, OSI coming in. Yeah. We got our dorms searched probably 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
While we were there. And actually we thought, and I'm pretty sure it was the case, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but mysteriously, like 2 or 3 weeks into we're starting tech school, like this random dude comes in, and they're like, yeah, he's part of your team. And we're all looking at him like, man, like you're not even in shape. Like, how did you even get here?
Right.
So we're like, whatever. And I was an element leader marching him around, and I could just tell something was off. He just wasn't switched on like everybody else. 2 weeks, he does all the tests, 2 or 3 weeks go by, and he just disappears. Now in retrospect, I'm like, dude, that dude had to be an OSI.
Had to be, yeah. Had to be.
Some food. But, other than that, the field, this story, I'm a city boy, man. Like most of those guys were like from Alabama. Ferg, he was in a flight below me. He's from Louisiana. Like all these country boys that grew up with guns and was outside. Like I was a city boy from San Antonio. So I don't think I spent the night in the woods ever at that point. I went camping and stuff like that, but it wasn't, to the level that we went in tech school. Right. So like sleeping and you're freezing and you're, sleeping in a hole and things like that. But I just remember being so sleep deprivated. I remember Swells it felt like he was following me for like 3 to 5 clicks. And then he was like, I look in the tree and he's like sitting on a tree and there's NVGs and I could see like the one green circle. And I was like, who was Jordan? And he was like, keep going. I was like, I'm going. And then honestly, I think like that kind of like tricked me into keep going and staying on the path and grinding because I thought he was following me the whole time. And I think it was like my canteen, like on a, on a 550 cord.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, man, it was fairly clean, to be honest with you. Like I didn't get any setbacks other than people getting in trouble and getting recycled. Like it was fairly smooth for me.
Did you feel like since you were younger, like I said, you and I were in the same boat. We were both 17. It seemed like the guys that came in there had been at least done something, maybe a year of college, maybe worked somewhere over the summer, whatever it was. Did you feel like you were like a little inexperienced? I mean, yes, being a city boy for sure. I was in the same boat. I'd never done anything like that either. So that compounded with our youth and just inexperience. Did you feel like you were kind of like out of your depth a little bit when you were going through? I know I did. I felt like, man, what am I have no, because like you said, you go from high school and then you're like, boom, right into the woods of Florida,
Yeah.
and you're trying to navigate through wait a minute vines and it's nighttime and it's just crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if I felt out of place. I think it was more of like it was something that was different.
Or maybe just overwhelmed a little bit sometimes. I don't know. That's
Yeah, I definitely think being overwhelmed, like taking the test, getting, having to pass the test and then learning something new, like at that pace, that was definitely quick. But I think even the older guys were probably having a rougher time than me because, I think they had a little bit more experience in life and they're like, man, if this doesn't work, I can fall back to X.
Oh, right,
Like,
right.
I couldn't fall back to high school. And so, I was like, dude, it's either this or nothing. Like, I'm not going back.
Right.
Some of the guys I think that didn't make it, that's what got into their head because they were like, man, I can just fall back into X. Like one dude was like a banker, a telemarketer, and that got to him. And one day he just, tapped out right at the PT field, when we were just getting smoked. And so actually, I think that was probably a disadvantage to them, kind of the way I look at it.
Did you have any other interesting stories from tech school?
I mean, that was the first time, I'll be honest with you, first time I went to a strip club. I think for a lot of us, the first time that I was 18 at that point. So now I can like legally get into other clubs, whether you had to have a band. So, I thought that was that club scene and that club life. And honestly, I think that was distracting.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I did meet some girls there, but they were just a distraction, you know what I mean? And I was laser focused because I was like, dude, I can't be getting caught once you're past a certain time. And I think I made it into the dorms by like 30 seconds one day because I was at a certain level. I can't remember what it was, but
Yeah.
dude, after that, I was like, oh, absolutely not. I cut all the broads off and I was just like, dude, I cannot have this. I can't get recycled. I can't do this over. So I cut them all off. Like I didn't go to any of the clubs anymore. And if I did, I was like, dude, I'm back by 11 p.m. You
Right.
know what I mean? So, or I'm running back. So I think I was just terrified of swells and the instructor. So yeah, it was pretty clean for me, to be honest with you.
So then you got out of tech school. You went directly to jump school first? Or did you go
Uh,
survival first? They put us through jump and then survival, but I don't know. I don't know if that's how they did it before. Or how did they do it for you?
yeah, I'm pretty sure I went to jump school. I think I went through with Benson as well, with
Oh, okay.
Adam. Yeah, I went through jump school, and I mean that was its own beast.
Right.
I mean, a couple of stories in jump school. I mean, my jumps went off flawlessly, but the individuals that were around me, I think at this point I was around like the dudes that graduated, right? It was like, all right, man, these are fairly high caliber individuals.
Right.
Man, I go to jump school and I'm just around dudes that didn't brush their teeth like literally the entire jump school. They would wake up in the morning, put a dip in, even though we weren't supposed to have dips. He would put the dip in, we would go to sleep, he would take the dip out, put it in the can, we would wake up, he would take that same dip. And I was like, oh dude, like when we had to go to the AFES, buy a toothbrush and like teach this dude how to brush his teeth. And I was like, dude, what is going on here,
Right.
man? But that's when I noticed. I was like, okay, there's different walks of life. Um, I was the youngest one, but I was like babying these 22, 23-year old men. Um, and I think that comes from, I raised my brother growing up. We didn't have, dads in our lives. And so
Right.
I was at fifth grade, I'm sitting here while my mom's at work and it's like, dude, figure it out. Like, take care of your brother. He was like 3 or 4. And so I was had that kind of like that father figure, older mindset. Like, I can't be effing around because, it's all on my shoulders.
Yeah, you had to
So
grow up a lot faster than most kids, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah. And so, but yeah, that, I mean, nobody actually in airborne school. So one of our platoon leaders, Marine, and he was an asshole to us
Yeah.
uh, every day, man. So that was my first inclination of seeing how the different services interacted and how they viewed each other, right? Like the Air Force were like, we're the punks, right? And
Right.
the Navy, we're the punks. There were a couple PJs there and they had their Superman shirts. Army ran things, and the Marines were just like the devil dogs, the mean, more hyper aggressive. And so I remember our Marine platoon leader, he was in charge of our section or our line or whatever. Um, he was just a butthead to us. If we had to be outside at 5:30, we were out there literally at 4:30. You know what
Jeez.
I mean? Like dress, making sure our tape was on our helmets. But yeah, man, he on his third jump, and I was actually right behind him. To this day, I'm thinking like, man, could I have said something different? But he had his static line wrapped around his arm. I think it was on a right door exit. He had it wrapped around him on his right arm, and it tore his bicep
Ooh.
almost completely. And he got recycled. But I seen that as we were sitting there getting ready to go, and I was just like, man, I don't like, is this right? I don't know if this looks right, but we tried to correct him before, like, hey, hey, Gunny, like, your tape is a little off. And he would just like knife hand us. Like, what, I mean, like,
Wait, this was
constant.
the instructor that had that wrapped around his arm? Like the
No,
Marine
no,
Corps? Oh, it was
no, no.
the.
Yeah, yeah. He was one of the students.
Oh,
He was
okay,
just
okay.
yeah, he was just like a gunny. And so, like, we would try to professionally, and like, we knew we were at a certain level, but like, we could never correct him or like, hey, what do you think about this? And as I think about it, these are like all the lessons that I'm like, oh, don't lead like that.
Right.
Don't do that. And so people were like scared to give him feedback. And man, I was scared to like say like, hey, I don't know. I think it's supposed to be, like not wrapped around your arm. I don't know how
Right.
it's supposed to work. Maybe like mine, and not like that. But man, he went out, and to this day, I still think about that. And I think that the lesson learned, the takeaway is, even if you are going to get your ass chewed out, like, say something.
Yeah.
Be bold, be aggressive, and say something, because it could have been his life. You know what I mean? It could have been his
Sure.
arm.
But what can you do? I mean, you're a student like him. It's up to the jump master to be checking everybody as they go out. I mean, it's I can understand he's already kind of abrasive, so yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a tough call. You feel like you want to say something, but then
yeah. He didn't die, so
that's good.
don't feel too bad.
Right. And then so after jump school, you went. Did you go to up to Fairchild for survival?
Yeah, yep. So right after jump school, survival school. Man, survival school was fun to me, dude.
Yeah.
I do have a funny story with that one, but man, I'd been again camping, but like not to that level. I thought it was fun, dude. We were playing hide and go seek.
Right.
When the cadre were trying to find us, I was like, dude, I'm getting paid to do this.
Exactly.
I'm like, this is awesome, man. Funny story. No issues going through survival school. So we go through. We come back to the hotel, and the whole time, like, man, I don't understand I didn't understand like why we were putting Vaseline in a cotton ball. I was like, is that a medical, like, is this like a gauze, like we packing a wound? Like, I
Right.
didn't understand that, or I wasn't paying attention to both, right?
Sure. Sure.
So man, like, we come back to the hotel, and my buddy, he was a PJ, and I come back and I'm sitting here scratching my stuff, man. I'm like, dude, like, what's going on, dude? I go into the bathroom. I pull my pants down. I had a tick on my stuff, man.
Oh man.
Dude, I about passed out. And I was like, hey, Mark, like, get in here ASAP. And he was like, oh, dude. He's like, don't pull it off. Let's put some Vaseline on it. And I was like, all right, whatever. Put some Vaseline on it. I was like thinking, like, it's going to take minutes. He was like, no, man, it'll fall off in about a day or two.
Oh.
And I was like, negative. I'm not having a living organism be on me down there for a day and a half.
Right.
And I get some tissue paper and I like start wiping the Vaseline off. Right. And I'm like, dude, I'm about to wipe this off. And I was like, dude, what else can we do? And he was like, oh, let's just put a flame to it and it'll come off. It'll like release itself. And then if not, you can pull it off, but you might get Lyme disease. And I was like, dude, I'll get Lyme disease. I don't care. I didn't know what that was anyway.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So I wipe off as much as I can. And honestly, I don't think it was that much. What I failed to like connect was that, the cotton ball and the Vaseline was a fuel source for cooking or heat or whatever. I didn't connect that. I wasn't paying attention, I don't think.
Oh no. Oh no.
So I wipe off as much as I can. I mean, there's Vaseline like everywhere. Like I globbed it on there.
Yeah.
I put the match to it, dude, and it like went up. It went up and I'm like smacking it and it's not doing it. It's just transferring itself.
Oh my
Dude,
God.
I got burned decently bad down there. Went to the hospital, but man, that was one embarrassing. But and then I'm like going, and they're all the nurses, and they're like smoke shows, right?
All right.
At the base hospital, and I'm just like, dude, singed, burnt, and they're just like cleaning me up, and I was like, oh man, this is
man,
this is not good. But yeah, other than that was that, and dude, I still have a scar down there.
I'll bet.
From that damn tick. Because after that, it still didn't come out.
Oh no.
And so, no, it still didn't come out. So I was like, right there, I was like, screw it, man. I just freaking had, I think it was a Gerber and yanked it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, lesson learned. Vaseline is simple.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean that's a city boy, right? Like,
sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you, to your point, those other guys kind of already knew those lessons. Maybe not that particular one, but they had some backside knowledge. You and I, it was like if we didn't pay attention to one thing in the class, it could be it could turn into this,
Yeah. I mean, other than that, I mean, it was the first time that we pulled over. Like once we got balled up, and you get on the bus and you're traveling to wherever. We pulled over and there was like a deer on the side of the road that was dead. And, the SEER instructors just pull it over. They do a check and they're like, yeah, it's probably a day or something like that. It's still good. Hack off both of its legs. And I'm just like, what the is going on here? They put it in a trash bag, put it on the bus. And so, we go out there and we're making TPs and we're like smoking the meat. Part of me, I was like, this is disgusting.
Right.
But the other half was like, man, that's pretty badass, right? Like pulled over, if the meat's still good. And to your point, the country boys know this type of stuff. Like they quartered deers probably all their life. So went out there and caught rabbits, and I ate a rabbit's eyeball. Ate that's standard stuff. Ate the fluid out the stomach of the rabbit, and it was like lime juice. But other than that, nothing crazy that everybody else has done.
Yeah. We take all that stuff for granted, like the rabbit and all that. We just like, okay, this is part of the course, so no big deal. And then we forget that 99% of the population have never done anything like that. So,
yeah, they're just looking at you like you're just a weirdo,
right?
Or something like that. But after survival school, they let me go on leave. So actually, and this is my first inkling of Fayetteville, North Carolina, they let me go on leave. So they paid for me to go from Washington to North Carolina, but I had to buy a ticket to go back home from North Carolina to Texas and then back.
Okay.
So I went from Washington to Fayetteville. I get to Fayetteville and I couldn't stay in the airport for my flight. So I had to go into a hotel off of, right down the street from the airport, which ain't good. So I was like, dude, just take me to the closest hotel that you got, because I got to be back here in like 4 hours.
Yeah.
He was like, are you sure about that? And I was like, why are you questioning me? I don't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, just take me to the hotel. So he
Right.
takes me to the closest one. Literally, I get out, I open the door, and there's nothing but needles on the ground, like
Oh my God.
where he dropped me off. And I look and I was like, are those syringes? And I'm looking around, like looking for a hospital. So I mean,
Right.
it's just, you know what I mean? Like I knew about drugs and stuff like that, but I didn't understand the context of, like, people shoot up drugs. It ain't just smoking crack. They
Right.
shoot
Right.
this. So I'm coming out. I'm like trying to not step on them, just cracking uh, needles left and right. I go check in. I open my door, dude, and it's just like this dark stain on the floor that more than likely was probably blood,
Right.
but it looked like it was black. And dude, I stayed on the bed and just stayed in my clothes until it was time to go. Like, I didn't get under sheets. I just laid like a mummy
Oh.
uh, for 2 or 3 hours, and I was just like, all right, I gotta get the hell out of here. So that was really my first inclination of what Fayetteville kind of brought to the fight. And
Yeah.
then went on leave, thought I was a superhero when I went on, did my recruiter time, and then came back and then checked into the 14th ASOS. That was in maybe April or May 2001.
Okay.
I check in. We were on like the base housing or whatever, like the hotel, and they came and got us, and they were like, "Oh man, dude, Jimbo's pissed off at you." I was like, "Jimbo?" I was like, who the hell is Jimbo?" And so we got there. My buddy Vastbinder, we did the program together, and we check into the 14th ASOS, and they call us Crockett and Tubbs. My buddy Vastbinder, he's a white guy, and me, and they're like, "Crockett, Tubbs, get down, push," and that's where it started. The 14th.
Oh
Uh,
man.
so that was fun. But yeah, I don't know if you want me to go into all that, but
Yeah,
uh,
I see. Here's the thing. I've
yeah,
I've visited the 14th many times, Jump Fests and Jump Master School and all this stuff, but I was never stationed there. But I have a lot of buddies that were, and I hear all these stories about the 14th. So if you have anything that is 14th related, please, that they're always good stories.
yeah, yeah, man. That's really, I would say, that's the organization that, like, probably caged who I was in terms of like personality. But
Yeah.
yeah, man. So we check in, and it was like all these competitions, right? And you think about it, like going to the airborne program, that was that was a competition.
Hmm.
You know, what I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, who's going to win this? Who, if there was five of you that wanted it, and we only had two slots, the top two guys are going to get it, or the
Right.
top one, however many they had. And so that was a competition to go to an airborne position, and it didn't stop once you got to the 14th. So literally, the day that we got there, they have these wings, and I think they still have them, but they have these wings. They're like these big ass airborne wings, and they have straps, like ruck straps, attached to them. And so the ruck straps, you put them on just like a backpack, but on the inside it has people's times, like time trials. And so at the old building where it used to be, you would go around and run around and do these time trials. I think it was like twice around the vehicle bay.
Oh.
And so, like, it was just like if you had the top times, you sign it off, and I guess it was like some clout or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was like the first inkling of like, oh, the competition doesn't stop. It's only began.
Right.
Uh, and like who's going to go to QC from here? Who's going to be the ETAC? Like that was a competition. So I checked in. I was in A flight. Man, there was Travis Cruz, James Michael, aka Jimbo, Jorgensen. Later on, a lot of controllers that DeLorean Sheridan. Those guys were there. Jeff Leahy, Zach was there. Colthart, just a crap load of dudes that
Yeah.
I still look up to this day. I mean, those were the giants. B Mac, was there.
Solid guys. Yeah.
So that's really who kind of shaped me. And And once I got to A flight, and even in A flight to B flight to C flight, like we were all competing against each other. So it's not only internal to your flight, but it's like don't go in another team room and like not knock. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Like you don't knock, dude. It's game on. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So even that competition, I was like, man, the competition just doesn't stop. So, but that was a great learning experience, and I was there from 2000 to 2004. But like right after I got there, man, that's when we were doing a lot of training. I mean, honestly, that's all we did.
Mm-hmm.
Here's your vehicle. Here's your jerk 206. Go shoot, go jump, rinse and repeat. Go talk to the Army, and then 9/11 happened. I mean, I'll never forget it. Again, man, I'm a city boy. Like football, like I didn't even have to. I started, so I didn't really have to go to class. To be honest with you, or pay attention, especially in Texas football. So they were like, "Hey, I just finished a workout. I was driving, and I was listening to the radio, and they were like, breaking news: a plane is, you know, hit the towers." And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, freaking idiot,
All
change
right.
the channel. They kept talking about it. I was like, freaking idiot. Changed to another channel, and they were like, breaking news, another plane has hit the building. And I was like, dang, that's two idiots like within like minutes.
Right.
I was like, damn, dude, like that sucks. Like what's going on?
Yeah.
I drive to the chow hall, and I'm getting my food, and on the base like speaker, they shot out all the squadrons that had to report back to their duty station, and the 14th was one of them.
Whoa.
And I was like, it was like the God speaker, and I was just like, what the heck is going on? So we had like all our food, and we just had to like leave it, shot back down to the 14th, and it was completely surrounded by the JSOC compound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you tap the fence, and somebody's running around there with a shotgun
Sure.
because they have sensors on there. So we drive in, and there's somebody like checking our IDs, and it was like somebody in my flight, and he was like, "I need to see your ID," and I was like, "You joking? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on?"
You know who
He's
I
like,
am.
"No, I need 100% ID check." And at this point, I lived in the dorm, so I was probably like dead reckon maybe 250, 300 meters from my dorm to the front of the 14th ASOS gate. And at the time, the 2-1, the 14th, and the CCT schoolhouse, CCS, was all right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody's like, "Let me see your ID," and they're doing this whole back and forth thing, and it's like, dude, it's me, it's Chris.
Right.
What are you talking about? And they're like, "All right, come in." And so we get in there, and then we get the brief, and they were like, "Hey, here's what this means. Here's if you don't know what the Twin Towers is, here's what it is. Here's how big it is." And at this time, like we didn't have internet, and so you couldn't see like pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like what I mean? Like I think some of the guys that probably had internet on their computer, but they brought it up, and they were like, "Here's the level of where we're at."
Mm-hmm.
And that started the 9/11. 6 months after I got to the 14th. Up until now, kind of been in combat up until OEF, OFS, and OIR kind of died down, but that was the start of it. So I was the second wave to go through 14th. Like the first wave was like Ferg and man who I think it was like mainly like Sea Flight, um, but it was a lot of those dudes that went initially for 5 or 6 months. They came back super skinny. And actually, let me kick before that. It was the Buddy Max, the Zacks, like the senior guys that shot off with the ODA teams like
Right.
almost immediately, right? And so
Yeah.
like Zach was my first boss, and then he got shot out. I don't know if Dusty Hodges went. I think Dusty went with the first 14th crew. But yeah, it was that initial crew, like Mike Colcart, like all those dudes went out, came back looking super sickly, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
wasn't eating, this is OEF1, you know what I mean? And
Oh yeah.
the infrastructure and all that stuff wasn't put up. And so,
Well, plus those guys were out with the locals. I mean, they weren't
yeah,
weren't in fobs. They were out on horseback and climbing through the mountains and doing just out there right in the middle of it. So Yeah.
Yeah, sick. And so those dudes came back, and I was just like, oh, like this is real. Tomat came back, like all the two guys, ASOS guys came back and kind of gave us the backstory of like what was going on, and I think they augmented those dudes.
Hmm.
And so I was like, man, one day that's where whatever they're doing, that's what I want to do. So fast forward, it's our turn to go. We're getting ready, like we're getting our vehicles ready, and it happened so quick that no kidding, like our vehicles that were soft skin vehicles were getting outfitted with like flak vests. You know what I mean? Like it
Right.
was a flak vest type of material, but they were lining the bottom and putting heavy doors, just replacing our doors. You know what I mean? But I was
Yep.
like, hey, those hinges are not meant for these doors. I remember
Right.
thinking, because I knew my truck. If you hung on that door, it was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Let alone now we're putting a 150-pound door on these trucks. So, dude, like we were driving, we took them down in Afghanistan, driving down the road, and doors were just like falling off the hinges. We're just
Jeez.
sitting on sandbags. We're like, oh man, dude, there has to be a better way.
Yeah.
Uh,
But that kind of
so
illustrated the beginning of the war. Like we as prepared mentally and skill wise as we were, our equipment was not up to snuff. Like we were really behind. I mean, even
yeah,
us, with the 17th, were like, they were. It wasn't the best. There could have been. We didn't have the foresight to prepare properly equipment wise, or they didn't want to give it to us. I don't know, whatever it was. But to your point, yeah, it
yeah.
was. We were ill prepared equipment wise for sure. All right, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't interrupt, but
No, that's perfect because it brings up a good point. Like I think about innovation. Like you need some type of experience to innovate, right?
mhm,
Like we're trying to innovate in a lot of organizations I've been to last couple of years, but if you don't have the right experience, like you don't know that, like man, we probably shouldn't do it. We should do it this way. But
right,
you have to experience something, and up until that point, like not many people have experienced much.
for
I mean,
sure,
if you were OBA, like you were doing J sets, they weren't doing much
right,
at an ASOS, like you guys with the Rangers and SF were probably innovating a lot more than we were at the ASOS. But like all we were doing was going out using the same equipment that we had, but we had no other experience.
yeah,
And so I think as soon as we got those experience, I think that's when the innovation table and the cycle and that loop and the feedback loop just kept being extremely vicious. And that's what like off ramped the technologies, whether it was a pod or whether it was a helmet or whether it was NVGs, because we had that user feedback like
yeah,
continuously and we had that experience.
yep, that's for sure.
So, but yeah, man, that deployment, it was interesting. It went late 2002, and it was funny because the night before I went, I talked to my dad for the first time on the phone. Like my mom's like, "Oh my God, you're gonna die! Like, please talk to your father." So I talked to him, first time I ever talked to him, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm going over here. Don't know him. Don't know what's going on. We'll figure it out when we get out there." But as soon as we got there, like Jeff Leahy, he was my first JTAC or ETAC at the time,
Hmm.
and it was my ROMAD deployment. We went from fob to fob Salerno. We got IDF'd a lot of suicide vests, a lot of vehicle borne IEDs. We weren't driving around a lot during that time. We were mainly walking up mountains, but we were kind of just flushing people out either for the SF teams. I was mainly what the companies, at least at the 82nd, was doing. They were doing
Yeah,
kind of go through a whole village, and the SF team's going to wait and see who leaves, and we're just going to clear this village. And if people ran and they left, that means that they were bad, and they were going to roll them up.
mm,
And so it was really a lot of village clearance operations, but really nothing significant during that time. We got in some firefights. Like I shot my weapon, but I didn't even like. It was like shooting at the side of a mountain. I was like, "Where's everybody going? Where are the tracers going? Like, let me
right,
just lay down fire." But I would hurry up and get on the radio and call the kayak or call Tombstone at the time.
hmm,
To try to get air. Yeah, it was pretty uneventful trip. Like I don't think we lost any joint partner in that first trip that I had, which was really good. The only crazy thing is that pops out. We were in Bagram, and there was a I guess there was an army guy like, going around like ripping holes in the females' tents, like where they were showering. Like he would like rip a hole and like reach his hand in and like fondle them, and
Jeez.
and like run off. And he like kept doing this for months, and they finally found him. But that was like the big thing for Bagram, and we went to Bagram like for our rest and recovery R&R,
Yeah.
because I think they had like Taco Bell or whatever,
Right.
Strapettes, and so that was like our time off. But
It's funny that Bagram at that time was R&R for you guys. I mean,
yeah,
that illustrates how
yeah,
austere you guys were, how shitty you guys had it. If you were R&R and back at Bagram, I mean, because in
yeah, I remember,
2002, Bagram was not built up like it was, like it
yeah,
is now, or was.
yeah, 100%, man. I remember we went to Salerno. I can't remember if we opened up Salerno or not, but I mean, we were in tents, and I remember like, man, like you have to be in good graces with the army, or like they're gonna put you by the pissers, man. And I remember
Right.
somebody in our group pissed them off, and like right outside of our tent, it was the piss tubes. You know what I mean? And we would our off time and to hang out was literally like throwing pebbles down the piss tubes. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
you either worked out with your Flintstone concrete bench
Right.
press.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that the
Yeah.
engineers made. You ran around with your pistol, or you listen to your CD and your Walkman.
All right.
Uh, that was a good trip, man. Around a good bunch of dudes. Um, really got to see like what a group of people that were like minded can go down range and do.
Yeah.
Whether you're Army or Air Force or whatever. But yeah, dude, there was one guy, he AD'd an AT4 like in a Connex over when we went back to Kandahar, and it was one of the Army guys. Like I don't know what he was doing, but amazing that the projectile side was pointing out of the Connex, because if it
Yeah.
wasn't, and it bipped inside of that thing, like man, those four dudes would have been dead. The reason why I bring that up is because that thing like went over our compound, and we thought it was IDF, and like we freaking sounded. We were like on a little Air Force compound. We sounded the horn and everything, and it was just us. And they were like, "What are y'all doing?" And we're like, "Dude, something." You could hear it fly over,
Yeah.
but you heard boom, and then something fly over. But what was scary too, man, is like on Air Force Village or Hill, whatever it was. There was that's where they brought all the pucks, the ODA teams, whether it was task force or whoever. Like they brought them to Kandahar, and they brought them into that little village that was right there, and we
Mm-hmm.
were like right across the street. And so if you wanted to go to the shop at or whatever, once it got dark, and you would hear like the groaning, and you could hear them like trying to yell at you or say something, and you're like, oh my god, if they escape, I'm dead. Um,
Right.
but I just remember seeing like whoever it was ODA, task force. Like I didn't know the difference back then. Like everybody was special forces,
Sure.
whether you were SEAL or not. But people would come off of a truck, and these guys would be blindfolded, right? And they would take them into the compound. And I'm thinking like, oh man, like these are some bad dudes that are in there.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get out, and I'm still a teenager. I mean, I think I'm just turned 19 at this point.
Yeah.
Um, that's Kandahar. And then going back to Bagram, that was the first time that I met a soft TACP. So it was in the Playboy Mansion, and I think that was just where like the Tombstone guys and some of the soft guys would come back, and it was just like that TACP little hooch that we had right there. But that's the first time I met Lunk, and I think he was on a he was at the regiment, but he was doing an SF deployment for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But he came in there, man, and I just remember like talking to him, and it was something that was just different, and I was just like, man, who is this guy? Because it was Playboy Mansion. Everybody knew who the Playboys were at that
Sure.
point, and he was a Playboy, and it was just like, oh man, if you're a Romad, like you're a god at that point. If you were on soft, you know what I mean, like.
Right. Right.
And I don't know if you were at the 17th then or later, but
Yeah, I think I came over with him on that deployment, but I was supporting 275 at the time. But it was like me and him and a bunch of other SF guys. Then we all kind of went off for our different places. But yeah.
yeah. And like we'd never seen you guys, you know what I mean? So you've never seen a group of individuals. Like there's something mysterious and mystique about it. And so when you see one, you're like, man, what is that thing? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so like, I remember him like, just, we were chopping it up and I was just asking him questions and he was just talking to me like a normal dude. And I was just like, oh, okay, man, these are like normal guys, just like us.
Yeah.
And so that's even what drove me further. I was like, yeah, someday I'm going to be like in the circle. And it was like these drops of rice or whatever that led me down to these paths, but it was just the interactions I had with like certain personalities that like drove me closer.
For sure.
So yeah, that was the end of that deployment. Went back home.
Wait, tell me
Um,
about the 130. You said that you
oh,
thought you were going to
oh yeah,
crash.
yeah. So we got into not a whole bunch of firefight, and I wouldn't say they were bad firefights, like nothing significant.
Yeah.
Um, wasn't scared because I mean, I don't know. It felt like a video game, at
Right.
that point.
Yeah.
Um, especially if nobody got hit. But we were coming from, and I can't remember if we were going from Bagram to Kandahar. Wherever we were going, we were definitely coming into Kandahar. Um, and so, like, man, we load up on the C-130 like just as normal, and we're going back to Kandahar, and it was a couple of 14th guys and some SF guys, and so we load up all of our equipment, and my TTP back in the day was like, dude, I always made sure that I had batteries, like, or being a Romad, right? You've had batteries, you have comms, it's working. So I
Right.
was just, dude, I was so scared to like turn on that radio and crypto's dumped or your freaks are not there or they're not in the preset that you want it. So I'm like constantly checking that thing. And so I just remember being on my radio as, we're taking off, and I was doing like sat checks, like trying to like, even when we were flying. But so we're flying, they turn off lights, and I'm like, all right, I think we're good. So I turn off my radio. My eyes are closed, and I'm sitting there, and Jason Romashko was sitting right next to me, and I just hear a boom. At the same time, I see lights. Like even though my eyes are closed, I see it through my eyelids, and then I felt heat as well. And immediately, I'm like, oh, dude, we're dead. Like we just got shot by a SAM. Like I knew what SAMs were in AAA,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm still a Romad. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
I
Sure.
knew up to a point. At that point, I'm like, we're dead, because right after that happened, like we initially went into like a deep dive. Like you
Oh
hear a
my
flash,
God.
you hear a boom, and then you feel a bank, and then like you're starting to float. You know what I
Oh
mean? Like
man.
we don't even have our seatbelts on. Like we're just like floating, like we're in
Yeah.
space. And we're like, oh shit, like pulling our bags closer to us, pulling our ass back to the seats, and now we're
Right.
like, oh, I need to probably put my seatbelt on.
Yeah.
And so I remember like trying to pat Ramashko's head and pat other people's head to say like, hey man, like shit, do you have your helmet on? Because you put your helmet on, and some of the SF guys were like strapping up, and I was just like, oh shit, something's going on.
Right.
I was just like, oh man, we're dead. The only thing I could think about is like I started turning my radios on, and I was like, shit, if we hit, I want to be able to get comms. Like if we crash, like I got to get comms. So I start
Smart.
turning on my radio. But yeah, I totally thought we were crashing and gonna die, either die or it's gonna be a hard land. And I was just like, man, if what happens if I lay down like this and
Right.
crash? Maybe if I can put my arm right here and I can still use I didn't know what was going on, but dude, that was literally the probably one of the scariest times in my life.
Were they just popping flares? Is that what
Yeah,
you
so
felt?
yeah. So what has happened? They busted a flare. What they shouldn't do. So the context was we were flying and it was just AAA. They
Yeah.
were shooting blindly because they heard murr. They
Right.
shot blindly, and I think they had an experienced co-pilot. He was on the sticks, and so he popped the flare, and all that did was signal exactly where we were. And so as
Right.
soon as he popped that flare, they were like, "Oh, actually, you're not right here. You're right here." And they started getting a little bit more effective fire, and
Oh,
so he
okay.
had to dive to try to get away a lot longer than I guess what was the rule book says.
Sure.
So, because it's supposed to be, I forgot the process, but you hit the flare, you do a bank, you dive a little bit, and then you kind of coast out and go a different direction. But he just
Yeah.
kept it, he held it.
Man.
So yeah, dude, we landed because I guess like he put so many G's on the wings that they had to do like a panel check or something like there was something wrong, and so
Wow.
we had to do one pass, and they had to like look at it. We did another pass, landed, but yeah, that was that story.
Dang.
Yeah,
So you met Lunk. So that's a key. That was one of your, and that's a phenomenal guy to meet if you're wanting to know about that world. I mean, he's
yeah.
well versed in it for sure. Um,
Mhm.
so that kind of gave you that little seed that you're like, I want to do what those guys are doing. That was kind of
Yeah,
the initial exposure
yeah,
to the soft world.
yeah. That was definitely the seed. And then right after that, we were at the bar, and I was with Leahy, and he'll probably kill me if he hears this, but he like tripped and he was going back to the shower or something like that, and he tripped right over one of the guide strings to the tent and like broke his elbow or he did something, you
Oh
know what I
man.
mean? And like, he hurt himself. So Cedar Soda was like, "Hey, like we'll take you to help out in Cedar Soda and being the jock." And so he left, and then I got assigned to I think it was Art Boyer. I was like his road mad, so we can go out. But yeah, Jeff Leahy, he went on that side, and he came back, and he was just telling me all the stories, and I was still talking to him at work and things
Yeah.
that was going on, and I was like, dude, if y'all need a road mad, dude, hit me up.
Right. Right.
So, but yeah, that was like really the second seed, and then or probably the third seed because the guys that initially went out, that was probably the first.
Oh yeah.
Talking to
Seeing them
Long,
all come back. Tom,
yeah,
Matt, and all those dudes. Yeah.
yeah, all the 22nd guys, and even the guys that augmented with us. So that planted the seed, and during that deployment too, this is when Iraq was kicking off too.
Mhm.
Like because we were like trending in 2003, and they're like, all right, Iraq's back to kick off. Like who all wants to go? And everybody was like, F yeah, raised our hands. They're all like, all right, repack our stuff, make sure it's good to go. Send notes. So we wrote a whole bunch of notes. I think that time the group commander at the time came down and shook our hands and was like, man, I appreciate you guys filling this gap, going straight from Afghanistan, and then you're potentially going to fly straight into Kuwait on the initial invasion.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks goes by. They're like, all right, yeah, stand down. Nothing's going to happen. We're like, all right, so now you're mentally ready. Just, all right, you're going back home. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so a week after that, they're like, all right, it's kicking back on. Who wants to go? And we're like, F yeah. Pack our stuff again, like, repack it, get it into the connexes. 2 days later, they're like, all right, yeah, stand down. We're like, dude, what the F is going
Jeez.
on? So we did that cycle like 2 or 3 times. Um, and they're like, all right, we're just going home. So went back home. As soon as we got back home, like the next 14th crew, like I took them to the staging area, to the lockdown place, and, dropped them off. And this is when, like Clint Campbell, Jorgensen, uh, uh, Miller, a couple of other dudes, like, now I was like a senior ROMAD, I'm like combat experience, I come back. Now these guys are going to Iraq. And so they went on that first phase. Actually, let me back up. So the guys that ripped us out after Afghanistan, that was Lozano's crew.
Oh,
And
okay.
like before we even left, man, like we went to some clubs together and we're hanging out. And then they ripped us out, and Lozano like slept in my bed. Like you had like your little home base bed on Air Force camp. So if you
Right.
ever came back, like you had the same bunk while you're out. And so like Ray, we did some left seat, right seat, ROMAD stuff, and you go back home, and you go into do your workout. There's an all call. You found out Ray got killed. So that was rough. And that was the first probably moment that I was like, oh, this is not a game. Like you can not come back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I think death. I didn't understand death probably until that point.
Yeah.
You heard about like, oh, so and so got killed, and like two soldiers from 503rd or 82nd or 508, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But it's so distant, and you're like, man, that sucks. But
Mm-hmm.
you keep driving, as opposed to somebody like you knew, and um, you were kind of like a senior romad to them and kind of trained them. I think that was the first time that hit me. Like, man, you could not come home. This isn't a game.
Yeah, it makes it real.
Yeah. Um, so fast forward, and it was at that time like I had got orders too to Italy, like right when I got back, and I was like, dude, Italy, like I'm not trying to go overseas. I'm like trying to hang here and see what this organization over there is about, And at
Right.
this point, like, I still wasn't a JTAC, and I was getting ready to go because I was starting to be a more senior road med, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, dude, I'm gonna go somewhere and like be last online because I'm the new guy. You know what I mean? And so couldn't get it to turn off. Like nobody would take the orders. So got orders. So got married. Had my daughter. Actually, I had my daughter while I was in Afghanistan, and I wasn't married at the time. I had my girlfriend, current wife. That was a little rough. I
Yeah.
mean, like seeing pictures on AOL and Yahoo or whatever it was, and
Right.
like you get your little block of time to like check in on email or whatever, and like
Yeah.
you get a letter, and it's the first time you see your daughter, and it's on a 3x5. um but and they in full transparency, like they did ask me, like, hey, like, do you want to go on the next round, um if there's going to be a round? And I was just like, man, this is potentially a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I was young. In retrospect, I probably should have waited, but like, I mean, like,
I know exactly how you feel for sure.
you know,
Yeah.
just like I was like, man, my mom and my grandmother raised me well enough that I'm gonna be there, whether I'm with this lady or not. I'm gonna be there for that kid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, came back. She was a couple months old. She was maybe like 2 or 3 months old. But yeah, get orders to Italy, and I check in, and man, Lunk, he's the NCUIC,
Oh
and
yeah, that's right. Okay.
and man, we had some hitters there, like Karoon, Rod was there, Bulldog, Mike Smith, Faustino, man, Mike Furman, a couple other dudes, man, like Mitch Yang, like really good dudes, and it was so small. And talking to Lunk over the years, and he was like, man, this is how it is at the battalion. Like, you're small, and that was the most dynamic group that up until that point, and probably the funnest time that I had, because our group was like so small and tight knit,
Yeah.
uh, and like what I mean, like you couldn't in a bigger organization. I think you can like hide a little bit. Like if you somebody wanted to hide, there's like 30 of you, right?
Right.
But when there's like 8 of you or 10, like, man, you can't hide because it's just more potent. What you're doing is more potent there.
Yeah, I mean those big
So
units, you got like little cliques everywhere, but
yeah,
but you are the clique. That's it. You're that smaller unit. You're just that's it. You're the clique.
yeah,
Yeah.
you had 503 and 508. We had 2 battalions, but it's like it wasn't really a battalion's worth of TACP in
Right.
there.
Yeah.
So we were super tight, and Lonk, man, he had it switched on. And I remember, I mean, even when I went there, I was 22 or 21, and he shaped me a lot. Honestly, like a lot of how I act now. It's Lunk's fault, but like we couldn't be sitting around. Like there wasn't none of like hanging around. Like you're either training, what I mean. Like you're on the radios,
Right.
you're working out, you're doing something. And so I think that's why I'm a busybody now. And I was like, hey, like Phil, I was like, what are we doing? Like we either relaxing like at home, but that we're not relaxing like at work.
Right.
So that I went to QC, and I'm getting ready for my first JTAC deployment in 2005. Mitch Yang, he was there, and uh, he actually had to leave early for some reason. So I was going to do my like 6 month deployment, but before that, I had to do like 3 months of his deployment, and so like I went
Jeez.
ahead of time. And as soon as I hit the ground, man, the first person I met was Rugel, Larry Rugel. He was I don't know if he was a 175 or 375 guy, but in retrospect, now that I know, I mean, he was RFS, but I think he said he had a DUI. He was like, "Yeah, man, I was in the regiment. I had a DUI." And so he went to 173rd, and he wasn't a platoon sergeant, but I think he was like a squad leader.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, as soon as I was at the range, and I'm sighting my stuff, and I see him out there, and man, he's just like he's planking it. I mean, he's shooting a whole mag, and it looks like a quarter or a dime. And I look at his target, and I'm like, dude, I was like, man, show me what are you doing? And so I think that's again that's the army seed that I seen, like what this organization of SOF at this point. It's, yeah, he said 75th, but it didn't really register, like whether it's special forces, ranger. Like I didn't know the difference. I just knew that he was in a SOF organization. And
Mm-hmm.
so I talked to him, like, man, we were friends throughout the whole deployment, mentored me a lot, like tactically. um, Not necessarily from a JTAC perspective, but like from a tactician. Here's what you want to think about, and as you are doing your JTACery, like here's what we want to know, and here's how you can best protect us. And so that linkage, man, that's what set it off. And I mean, that was 9 months being with him. You
Nice.
know, like having a previous 75th squad leader to give you the answers to the test.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, so that deployment, I wasn't that kinetic. I think I only dropped like twice. I probably dropped like 10 times, but twice in a like troops in contact situation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Honestly, most of my drops were like there was this pass, and we were like, dude, like we can't. We sent a couple like engineers. It was like this pass that was so narrow that they could be on top and just drop a grenade, and like the weapon system, the turrets couldn't even traverse that high.
Oh yeah.
And so they were like, hey, like, what can we do to open this thing up? And so we put in a big ass package. I think Mike Furman did. He was our Balo, put in this big ass package to open that thing up. And I think he dropped most of it from there, but I took some of the drops, and we were just dropping 31s, like opening this thing up. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
that rock was so hard, man, that I'm not sure how much it opened, but
Yeah.
it did open it some. But I mean, it probably made the pass worse because it just put all the rocks, the big ass rocks, like
Right.
right in the road. So we just told the Afghanis, like, hey man, go clear that shit out. Uh, but man, that was a good company. Like that was the first time that it was like, all right, man, this is on you. Your JTAC deployment. Did a couple missions. I was with Able Company. We did a lot of missions. Um, and then my company commander got fired. Man, he was like messing with he was messing with the private, like on Bagram. Like they looked through some merc chats, and he was like, there was some issues, and so he like disappeared.
Yeah.
Like, crap, man, where the hell did the company commander go? And so since the company commander got fired, like they halted operations. And so I immediately went up to the battalion to work with Battle and Chosen Company. And so Faustino Martinez, Del Toro, they were with those companies. And so I was going to go up there, take the load off of them. And so we would yo-yo, like they would go on a mission. I would go on a mission.
Mm-hmm.
DT would go on a mission, and then I would go on a mission with his company, and I would be yo-yoing. And so,
Gee
um,
whiz. Knowing DT and knowing what happened to him, that man, that could have been you. I mean,
yeah.
you're
So funny story is that mission that he went on. The only reason why I didn't go on to that mission was because we had a new SF guy got hired to be my company commander, and so I was originally going out with that company. We were yo-yoing, and I was supposed to go on that mission, but I got called back because we just had another company commander. He's super energetic. He's ready to get after it. He wanted his JTAC back. So we go back, and then DT gets hit, and I find that out. And like, who knows? Could that have been me? Maybe. Like, maybe not. But man, that hit home for me, and that shook me up a really good amount. Initially, it wasn't because, yeah, he got hit, but it's not like you go on the internet and see like pictures or how bad it was. It
Right.
didn't really hit home until after that deployment, because he was in a coma for a long time.
Mm.
And so we didn't really talk to him until we came back to the States. And then I went to go see him in San Antonio, and he was staying on Randolph, in one of the base housings. And so, I seen him, and that's when it hit home. I was just like, because he was messed up bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how you're alive, man. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
That spooked me. You know what I mean? Not gonna lie. Like before that, I thought I was invincible. Like we got in these in 173rd. I mean, there's a lot of 75th leadership that, whether it's a platoon leader, whether it's a platoon sergeant, whether it's a squad leader, like whatever it is, there's a pretty decent amount of soft influence in that organization.
Right.
And I think a battalion commander was actually the a previous 75th guy. And so, like, man, we were getting into it like bad. Probably not as bad as Battle Company. They lost a lot of dudes, but it was dynamic. I will never forget that, like, the first real firefight, that no kidding, like, things were like plinging off and like kind of exploding behind, like, rocks were like hitting you. You're like, oh, like, what is this? That was, can't remember the location, but my Romat, Anthony McKeever, forget his first name, but we went out, we were on a convoy, and then we got out, and because there was like some traffic, like there was some chatter. I think the signals guys got out, and they were tracking the push to talks, and they were like, man, it's coming from like this area.
Yeah.
So we were kind of, I wouldn't say moving to contact, but we were kind of just clearing it out. We kind of had a little L shape that we were just clearing it out, and just we had our sectors of fire. So as a JTAC, I'm with the platoon leader, and we go through, and all of a sudden we hear a boom, and we hear just fire going off immediately. And so we get down, and we're like, crap, like what happened? And so initially, the boom was somebody like ran towards one of the guys and blew himself up with a grenade in SVS,
Dang.
and it blew off his leg, right? And the medic got stunned, like, which was one of my buddies. He got stunned really bad, and they were like, "Hey, medic's down." He bled out, and so they were like, "Hey, the medic went down." And McKeever, like, he had just went through. He finished pretty much everything at PJU, and I think he felt dive, or he did something at dive, but he damn near a good medic. Like, he was
Mm-hmm.
teaching the medics how to do medic stuff,
Ah,
and I was like, Josh, I was like, dude, like, I'm gonna escort you to the squad, like where he's at. I told the PO, like, this is where we're going. So we start, and then shit starts firing at us, like, because we're the only ones moving now. We're like, shit. So we get down, and like we low crawl probably about 50 meters. It felt like it's probably only like 20.
yeah.
But we know for sure they were shooting at us, because like rounds were like hitting like right behind us. There was like a rock face, and it was just like hitting the rock face, and rocks were just like spiking at us. And we were
Jeez.
like, I was just like, ah, and I was just got on the radio, and I was like, dude, I need y'all to suppress them. And so they suppressed him. We got there, and his leg was missing. And Josh just like immediately, I was like, don't worry about the radios. Like, I got the radios. So I started calling air, and Josh starts banding him up and closing off, sealing off the wound. And initially, like his artery was like just squirting like a hose. And they were
Yeah.
like, man, so it felt. He was like, yeah, it felt like oil, like warm oil was like pouring over somebody. So he
Oh.
clamps off with his hands, and you're putting on the tourniquet. But he was like, yeah, if we don't clamp it off with the hand, he's like, I have to clamp it off with my hands. And so now I'm just like so intrigued of like what the hell's going on. And it's a while before air gets there.
Mm-hmm.
But just seeing him work in that situation, being his like first experience, that hit home too. And I was like, oh yeah, like this is real.
Yeah.
I mean, like, before it felt like a video game. That was the first time like I was like, this ain't a video game.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, that other than that, it was a real good trip. Ferg came and augmented us, I think, from the 14th. Um, went home, and
wait,
then
do you want to talk about leaving a weapon somewhere?
oh Yeah.
If we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
Yeah, no, it's funny, and it taught me a great tactical lesson.
Yeah.
So it was with Battle Company. It was when I was either Battle or Chosen. It was with I think I was with DT's company. And it was a badass mission, man. And I was like, hell yeah, I want this one. So we got quads air assaulted. I think like 8 to 16 quads and dirt bikes. And so
Nice.
everybody was either, I think it was a platoon minus. There was some that were on foot, but they dropped them ahead. And like we cleared a valley on quads and dirt bikes. And
Nice.
so each person had a quad or a dirt bike, and it was a shitload of us. Um, so we're kind of in this convoy, in this tactical convoy. We had, and I was controlling. I mean, it was a B-52, right? Like I don't think he had a pod on, so I was like, I'm not controlling much. I'm just making sure he knows where we're at, giving him updates, etc. And so I'm on my four wheeler. I'm driving, and I can't remember what happened. Like either somebody fell, or somebody had a bad tire, or whatever it was. But we stopped, and I had my weapon like slung in front of me, and so I had to help him out or pick something up. And I was like, shit, let me set this down. And this thing was bowfloshed at the time. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like, and it was sand color,
yeah.
and it taught me a great lesson about just laying your equipment in random spots. So I was like, man, shit. So I put it right by the bike, but again, it's bowflaged, and it blends in perfect. So we fixed the dirt bike or the quad or whatever it was, and I get back on the quad. Man, we're going, and something felt weird. Like I felt like naked. You know what I mean? It's kind of like when you walk
Yeah.
around, you don't have your watch. You're like, man. I was like, is my radio on? Like I got my headset, like with my helmet. I was like, oh shit, my weapon. We were probably a quarter mile away, and I
Dang.
just I just got on the mic and I was like, hey, hold up. I kicked it, went back by myself. You know what I mean? Like I was just
Yeah.
like, that's my weapon. I was like, I can't. This is embarrassing.
I'm
So I
sure.
go back. I remember there was landmarks, and I was like, because I remember as soon as we got off, I had a couple of visual landmarks, like just in case anything happened or if we got ambushed. I had some landmarks. So I seen those landmarks. I get off. I'm searching for like 1 or 2 minutes. I don't see anything. I'm like, F me, man.
Yeah.
So I finally see the weapon, and then I was just like, oh my God. I was like, never again.
All right.
And so probably up until that point, literally up until this day, I have nightmares of leaving either a weapon somewhere and getting on a helicopter, and everybody's waiting on you, right? You like
All right.
you're in the hooch, and then things are spinning. You're like, where's my you know,
Yeah.
up until this point, man, like I
Thank
have,
God you found it. Oh my God, it could have been. Just think if
yeah,
you'd have like, man, no, never. Oh, you'd have been.
yeah,
No, forget about the fact. Yes, it would have been embarrassing. Yes, that you would have probably gotten in a little trouble for leaving it. But you're also out in a combat zone without your personal weapon. So like that,
yeah,
that would have sucked. But man,
yeah,
thank God you found it.
yeah, and that like we were out there for I think like a week. Like we had like I called CDS drops, and we had CDS drops for MREs and
Yeah.
water. So like we weren't going to be picked up, and like I wasn't rolling around with a pistol.
Right.
So yeah, that was DT first firefight. Let Larry Rugel. I don't know if you've seen Restrepo, but
Yeah.
it shows Larry getting killed when they were kind of going up the side of that mountain, and
Oh,
then
really?
he traversed. Yeah, he was one of the guys that died on Restrepo.
Oh man, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and it's crazy. A lot of those dudes on Restrepo, because that was the deployment after IPCS. But those dudes are platoon leaders and platoon sergeants, and those were all my squad leaders. Like the first sergeant was a platoon sergeant. You know what I mean? Like they all
Yeah.
like bumped up. I didn't know Restrepo. He was too new, but all those dudes that were in Restrepo were the guys that we were banging it out with in
Wow.
04.
How about
Uh,
that?
yeah. So that was 2005, and that was really like once DT got hit. I seen him because I always knew that. And to go back real quick, so my mentor, he was a chief, and he was like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And I was just like, "I want to protect people." And he was like, "But I was like, I also want to go to school and like lead people. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was a
Yeah.
leader on the football team, and I was like, I want to lead people. And he was like, if you want to change people's lives, you go enlist it and you write it out. You'll change people's lives. If you want to change the direction of an organization, of what it does and what it doesn't do, you commission. And I was like, I was like, maybe I want to do both. And he was like, do your time enlisted and then commission. Simple as that. And I was like, okay, I think that's what I'll do. And from day one, as soon as I got to the 14th, we were training, and I was going to night school. I mean, I got this 18-year-old,
Nice.
and I mean, I was like going to Campbell University or whatever because
Right.
I knew I wanted to go to college, but I wanted to understand, and I wanted to see what the people were going through that I was expected to lead. You know what I mean? Like whether
Sure.
it's financial, whether it's training, whether it's some type of risk situation that I'm either approving or deny or whatever it may be. Like I want to have some context. Um, and so I say all that to say, like, as soon as DT got hit, that I wouldn't say expedited because I wanted to go back to the 14th and do and kind of bang it out and do another deployment before I commissioned.
Hmm.
But I was like the lowest ranking dude and the youngest guy, and that was at the time that we were moving the debt to an ASOS. That's when we turned it to an ASOS,
Mm.
the eighth ASOS. But it was a PCS because we went to Aviano as
Oh,
opposed to,
right.
you know what I mean? So they were like, hey, if you stay here, it's another 3 or 4 years. And we were already there for like 3 years. And I was like, dude, I was like, Italy's fun and all, but I was like, I'm ready to get back to the States because we started off family off early, got married, so the wife and the daughter can get their credentials and
Hmm.
visas to shoot over. But the wife was getting a little homesick, and so I was like, "No, we're going to go back." And they were like, "All right, so here's the spots that we have." And I was the lowest ranking dude. Like Keith Mellon, buddy Keith was there too. So everybody was more senior than me, and so they got the pick. They were like, "All right, I'm going back to the 14th. All right, I'm going to the 19th ASOS." And the only thing that existed was, I think, like Fort Hood, which, I mean, like at that time, like that was death.
Yeah.
That's what everybody thought. That the monster eventually got me, but it was like Hood or it was like Fort Polk, and I was just like, oh my god. I was like, man, I was like, Hood is closer to home, but that's death. And so I was like, man, let me go to Polk. I was like, I'll finish my degree and then commission, and then hopefully I can go back to the 14th. PCS, 2007, 2008 to back to Fort Polk. My son was born. And immediately I found out that that's where I met like Tim Hahn and a couple of the dudes. But a lot of the guys were augmenting SF there because you're expected to be an OC. And this was like the JRTC site. You're expected to OC conventional. And then when the SF guys came through, like they didn't have like SF JTAGs to like show them the ropes.
Hmm.
Um, in retrospect, I feel like that's a horrible idea because now you got these less experienced guys trying to tell JD like what he should be thinking about,
Right.
you know. But it's the same thing. I think it was like the not SADE. I forgot what the JRTC SF guys were called, but um, the notion was that like, hey, do it augment tour while you're here. So when you do have to provide some 2 cents or some experience or to help out the SF JTAX, maybe not the Air Force JTAX, but if there can't be any Air Force JTAX that come through and there's only SF JTAX, you can provide some experience and some mentorship and leadership to them. So dudes were cycling through, going on augment tours. This is the time that they still had augments, and they're like, "Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Absolutely!" Like I've been,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and I was in this dichotomy of like, man, like if I was gonna put in my packet, I should have put in my packet when I was in Italy
Mm.
to go to the 17th. Um, but my wife was like, she was pregnant. She was like 8 months pregnant. She had to leave early because she was in a certain trimester. And I was like, shit. I was like, if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna have to do it as soon as I PCS. So I was in this dichotomy of, do I put my packet in now? Do I put my packet into OTS? Do I deploy with SOF, like check it out. And at this time, I talked to Matt. Yeah, I think I talked to Matt, and I was just like, it's like, and I was just like, hey, like, what do you think, I should do? He was like, what do you want to do? I was like, man, I want to commission, but I also want to go to the 17th. He was like, and this was the time like 13 Limas was like kind of still a little bit being talked about, but
Yeah.
like you already had to been an officer. And I was like, what happens if I can swing like being a lieutenant? And I was like, can I come there? And I didn't know the regiment, like the whole lieutenant thing and the rank.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, he nicely said like they don't like lieutenants, especially what I mean, like at the Air Force
Second
level.
lieutenants for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't even a second lieutenant yet, and so I was like, all right, I want to get some soft time, so when I do put in my pack and you guys see it, at least I'll have something on there. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Whether I enlisted or I commissioned. So
Right.
man, I went out there, did 9 months. That's when I think that's when Dave got blown up around that time too. And they're like, hey man, there's a TACP blown up. Obviously he was all right, but I think he got blown up in a striker. But went down there, and that was my first time understanding that there was a difference between task force and like soft TACP or white soft, right? Because I
Yeah.
was on the SF team, 10th group, first group, man, jobbing it a lot, getting passed around from team to team. Probably the first team I was on was a FID team, and we spent, man, it was like 30 days. All we'd on like 3 or 4 missions, but it was like 30 days, and all we would be doing was teaching Iraqi SWAT tactics. And so I went through like a week-long shooting course with the SF team, and I was like, dude, half of you guys are like legally blind. Like, no kidding. They're SF guys. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? And so, went through their training. They were like, all right, sweet, man, you're a good shot. And I went through like Mid-South and a couple of other shooting courses to get ready for this
Yeah.
deployment. I was like, man, I can't mess this up.
Right.
Um, so I kind of over prepared, overtrained for, as much as I could. So I was on the FID team for like 30 days, and I was like, dude, y'all have to get me out of here. Like, I'm not doing Jay Jackery stuff.
Yeah.
So they got me out of there and went with another team, 10th group. And really the way that they kind of showed or told me where to go was like who was getting the most contact, which I thought was amazing. You know what I mean? So the teams literally had to draft. It was like a draft. They went into a draft of like, who's going to get the JTACs, right? And they were like,
It's
they
like a
showed
lottery.
up. Yeah. I mean, but it was like they had to like get on this board and articulate to the ODB of why they thought they needed the JTAC. And then it's most of what I found out, most of them were lying.
Yeah,
Most
of
of the
course.
time.
Yeah.
They're just being like overzealous on some of their stories. Unless,
Sure.
like, no kidding, they got in a firefight and somebody got shot. If somebody got shot, that was like the golden ticket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the teams, they did get shot. And so I went to those teams. We did a lot. We did a lot of missions. I learned a lot. Drinking through the fire hose, like tactically, I think that's where I learned the most out of obviously any deployment. But I don't think I could have been where I was at without Rule, kind of that mentorship with the 173rd and him showing me some of those tactics, because I was like, man, I remember him telling me about this, and I'm seeing how you guys operate. But again, I'm the Air Force guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like the augment. They really didn't know the difference.
Yeah.
But I was still like mentally, I was like, man, I'm still just the augmentee, telling this Zulu like, are you sure you want to do it this way? You know what I mean? So I kind of felt weird doing that, but really, what my first inclination of doing like intelligence is I got on a team. It was a first group team, and they were Fox heavy, like just intel sergeant heavy. I think they had like 4 of them or something like that. And so I think they were like designated like the AFO team. So we did a lot of stuff going towards the border of Syria. And obviously we stopped right at Syria. And it was near like the Talafar area. And so we didn't do obviously a lot of combat operations, not a whole heck of a lot. So I think it was like a month and a half. We did a lot of like CTR, like close target reconnaissance type of missions. You know, plain clothes in a BMW, either following somebody, taking pictures. It was a lot of the gray team stuff like you guys were doing back in the day, but it was,
Yeah.
um, you know, now that I look at it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of janky. But at the time, I was like, this is amazing. Like we're in a BMW with the camera, and you know, we had a car vehicle, you know, organization that painted the cars and put dents in them and replaced panels and et cetera to have a different look, and doing
Yeah.
a lot of source meets and debriefs. And so I thought that was like extremely intriguing. And it was just a different work in a different portion of the brain. It wasn't a cascadence. Like here's where I am. Here's where the target is. Distance, direction. You know, come
Hmm.
at this angle. It was looking at a problem, and because there was no cast. You know what I mean? I was like
Sure.
thinking, like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, we're not going to be dropping a bomb in the middle of Kirkuk. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but it's nice to have you there in case something happens. Like
yeah, right,
you're like the that break glass in case of X,
right,
whatever. Yeah.
right. And that's what I didn't understand. And I was like, man, what's my role? Like, I'm not debriefing these people, but
Sure.
they're, you know, understanding that and even being like a second combo guy. You know, I was
Hmm.
like, what's my value proposition of why I'm working with these people? So
Right.
that took a couple of days for me to understand, but they're like, here's the value that you bring by you being here, you know, and
Yeah.
just your calm, sweet, the people that you can talk to, etc. Um, so yeah, that was really my first inclination of AFO. Did a lot of missions, met a lot of good buddies that you know I'm still in comms with now. But that was really my first inclination of here's the difference between task force and regular white soft. Primarily is looking for assets, right? Like,
Yeah.
or like, hey, I need you to, you know, you're going to do the A and B brief with the 160th, if we can get the 160th. So I would talk to them,
Right.
you know, work the lift assets, but like fires assets, definitely wasn't getting a DAPS or Little Bird or anything like that. But just
Hmm.
getting the 60s or the 47s, you can get that fairly easy.
Yeah.
What was not easy was the attack, just CAS or ISR. You know, even the Kiowas. Like, you know, if Task Force wasn't using them, then we can get the Kiowas. And I remember like Captain Matt. I remember, um, I think it was they called him Cap Matt. I remember calling him and I was like, "Hey, man, are you guys going out? Like, if not, you think you can let me know when you guys meet or don't meet Trigger, and we can use these Kiowas because they're saying you guys have priority." And so that was really my first inkling. And I was like, who are these people? And
Right.
then my team sergeant, you know, brought us out to Task Force Kirkuk. Um, and obviously that was Delta that was out there. And so then I walked in there and I was like, oh, there's different levels of
Hmm.
soft. I got on the phone. I got to talk to some of the Ranger TACPs, and I was like, "Oh yeah, there's different levels." And I was
Yeah.
like, "We're probably down here." And so that was another seed, and I was like, "Damn it! I thought this was it.
You thought you were there.
I thought I was there." And I was like, "Nope." And that was the other seed. And then you know, fast forward, got back, talked to Matt, and I was like, "Hey, rounds complete. Did that. Got some great experience. You know, I think I want to commission. Like, what are you thinking? If I can I go there? Like, I want to commission." He was like, I don't know. You guys are new. Maybe let's see what we can work with. Fast forward was no, because they were only taking 13 laymen. You had to be a commissioned officer. So I finished my degree, got back, finished my degree, went to OTS, went back to the 14th ASOS. And from that point, I already knew. And I think like one of my good buddies, Ferg, was there, and I was like
Mhm.
talking to him, and I was like, I'm coming. I don't know when, but at some point, I'll be there. So grinded it out the 14th ASOS for 2.5 years. Went back downrange, and man, like went downrange as a butter bar. Is it a butter bar or first lieutenant? I can't remember. I think it was a first lieutenant. But man, like I had never received so much IDF like in my life. Like probably every third day, we would get 8 to 12 rounds. Um, and I can't remember Fob's sword. That's the fob sword. It was a fairly bigger fob, but it was right off I think Highway 1. And so like you can just shoot whatever and then just shoot
Yeah.
down Highway 1. You know what I mean? Get away super quick. But yeah, there was I was a lieutenant at that point. Like my job was not to go out the wire. The times that I did like saw some combat, but it was mainly like RPGs, like shooting RPGs. One landed like 20 meters from us. Nobody got injured, but got to drop some JDAMs on those positions. But that was like my first inkling of being in a jock, knowing that I'm supposed to be taking care of the boys, like in a combat situation, pass them air. And I guess it was a quote unquote like ALO role. So right, it
Yeah.
was the transition of not being the guy on the ground, but making sure they have like what they need, like in a combat situation, fighting the staff when it was time to fight, you know what I mean? In
Right.
a smart way. And so like, whether it was sergeant major or whatever, I think that taught me like the social intelligence, emotional intelligence to get you a lot further than kind of just, ramming straight through the door. Sometimes you got to pick the lock or go in through the window, but we always got
Sure.
what we needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, and I learned a lot of that stuff from that AFO team because I was on teams that were their team sergeant was um, a Charlie 1-1 guy or something like that, uh, and they were hyper aggressive, direct action, wanted to go through the door and do explosive breaches. I mean, and this is when I learned task force. They're like sometimes you just want to go on the roof or climb the side of the fence and come in through the roof. You know what I
Right.
mean? Or
Yeah. Or
um,
rope on top of the roof or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, whatever it was, like there was a different avenue. And
Yeah.
so I used that thought process, just at a staff level to get the boys and the gals what they needed.
Smart.
Um, so
That had to be
yeah,
nerve wracking though. Like every third day you're getting IDF. I mean, I don't. I think I could count on one hand the time I got IDF at a base, basically
uh,
because we were out most of the time. But man, that had to be just like because you can't get into a rhythm. It's like, all right, now I'm
uh,
gonna get up. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna go eat. I'm gonna go to my to the jock. But like every third day you got to dodge incoming rounds. I mean, that had to be nerve wracking.
I think the most nerve wracking portion was like you were helpless. You know,
Exactly right. Yeah.
like you could take cover like once the initial lobs were done. But if you get in a firefight, you hear, the snap or the crack or the whip, you're like, let me drop, let me get behind this. And you had a better chance of survival. With IDF, man, like if it landed in your bunk,
Yeah.
like it was your
No.
time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Right.
so I think um the thing that would stood out to me was like people like would run, and most of the time it's like, and they had it timed all the time.
Hmm.
They knew the alarm's going to go off, and within a certain, I mean, we had Afghanis live honestly like right across the little walkway from us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were the gate guards, and I was like, that's weird, but
Yeah.
they had it down to a science, so they knew when everybody was going to be underneath the HESCO wall barrier.
Hmm.
The concrete slabs. And at that point, it's like, it's not worth like shooting any more rounds if your intent was to harm or cause damage to humans.
Sure. Sure.
They would stop it. And so I'll be honest with you, most of the times, like I didn't even get up and leave because I was like, by the time, the first
It'll be
couple,
over in a second. Yeah.
yeah. But at that point, it was like, dude, just close your eyes. And if it's you, it's you. You know what I mean?
Exactly right. Yeah.
But I remember a couple of times, man, they hit, and there was a female soldier in one of the porta potties, and something told me like, man, check this porta potty. So this is after the fact, after it hit, and I looked at the porta potty, and that thing was peppered. And I remember thinking like, damn, dude, if somebody was in there, they're peppered because it hit right in the middle of like this little area that was fairly open, and it just peppered some
Jeez.
walls, went through some wood. So man, I opened it, and the soldier, she was using the bathroom, and she was just like bloody, and I was just like, oh my god. Originally I thought she was dead, but she started like moaning and groaning.
Oh my
Immediately
God.
called some dudes over, and like I pick her pants back up, And then we carry her over to the medical tent, drop her off, and they lay her on a gurney. And like right there in front of us, they just cut all her clothes off and just, now she's like naked. And I was like, oh man, it's probably
We
time for
should probably get out of here. Yeah.
probably should go. But and then and as soon as they did that, I stayed there and they cut it, and then blood just starts like oozing out of these holes
Oh,
that
man.
were coming out of her. And I was just like,
Was
oh.
she unconscious?
No, she wasn't unconscious. She was kind of out of it, I think, a little
Yeah.
bit.
Maybe in
You
shock.
know? Yeah, probably in shock.
Jeez.
But yeah, it was those.
Well, thank
are
God
like,
you were there. I mean, think about it. Think about it. If you hadn't have seen that, she could have bled out right there in the porta john. I mean, you probably saved that woman's life.
yeah. I mean, I don't know who knows, man. I think she had enough situational awareness because she was just like in there, she's like squirming because it was still wasn't over yet. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
But I was just like screw it, man. Like, and that was kind of our thing. Like weren't gonna run and hide. Like we're just gonna like look for work.
sure.
That was just the crew we had out there. And so yeah,
Wow.
that was the deployment of IDF. Like so much IDF.
That's more of that reality of war you were talking about before. I mean, that's just that's the kind of stuff you see in an environment like that. It's nothing you would expect, and it's horrible. And and you dealt with it. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. So fast forward, man, come back, and I'm just like, yep. Putting my packet in. I was talking to Matt a little bit more, and our packet that we put in was the first time that they were going to let non-flyers come through. So I guess before they were only hiring, pilots.
Yeah,
Um,
like rated
and
ALOs.
yeah, rated ALO. So Traxler was the commander at the time, and we put in our packet, and it was nothing but like lieutenants and captains. It was Bulldog, Houston, Lambert, a couple other dudes, and I trained my ass off on that, because I was just like, man, I'm gonna go here. And I was like, I gotta crush it physically. I felt like to the level of where I was at, I was probably on top of my game, like JTAC wise, like even though I was still a lieutenant, but I was on top of my game to be at an ASOS. Like, I was an evaluator, still doing evaluations as an assistant flight commander. You know what I mean? Like making sure guys knew what was going on. So yeah, trained my ass off, went down to selection, and then man, crushed the physical portion, crushed I thought I crushed most of it. And then, get to the board and they're like, we're sorry. And I was just like, I was destroyed. And I was like, I was like, I couldn't done anything better.
What did they say? What was the reasoning?
I mean, there was no reasoning. I think come to find out, it was probably like something psych related, but
Okay.
I think TX like overrid it and was like, so here's the thing. Now being cadre and being part of the process for multiple organizations, the profile that they were looking for was still that F-16, B-1, B-52 profile, that psych profile. And they didn't adjust that to 13 Lima TACP officer or ALO, whatever you want to call us, to that profile. And that was a couple of things. That was like, we're not going to be as smart as these guys. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a prior enlisted, played football in Texas. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I'm out there like sweating, trying to lead the team to dubs. I didn't go to college. I didn't go to like a real like in person, like an Ivy League school. And so
you did it like most of us that got our degree while we were in. You did it in your off time. I mean, it's exactly right.
I remember, and even in Iraq, man, we were like a 2-hour gaff, and I had half of my screen was a rover feed doing soaks. The other half was a Word document writing my papers. And this was like, dude, this is
awesome.
This is pre-USB time. You know what I mean? So my USB, I'm like sitting here writing my paper, just doing diary of the mouth, making sure I'm soaking and just getting updates. And I had another notepad right below it, just being like, all right, at 107, 2 mams, west side of the building, 110. I'm like, I'm going back and forth, and do I see anything? Telling him to, move the sensor wherever, going back and forth. So I'm trying to job it, as we all are trying to get a degree. I'm not
Yeah.
like, doing extracurricular activities. So I think going back,
Sure.
I think that was part of the profile that they were looking at. They're like, man, he doesn't meet the profile that we've historically seen, and it
Right.
was just different. You know what I mean? I think my social and emotional intelligence, probably what I noticed, was like off the charts. Like my vocab was probably not what they were looking for, because I didn't read a whole bunch of books. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Um,
But
so
so
I
you
was
said TX. You said TX trumped it though. You said he overrode it,
I,
or
in
somebody
theory,
did.
somebody did, and I think talking to Lonk over the years, like obviously he was a chief, like he knew me, he knew what I was capable of,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I think he had a big portion to play in it. But like weeks later, and they were like, "Hey, like man, you did a great job," and I think it was C Dub, Chris Wright called me, and he was like, "Hey man, we want you to come here." He's like,
That's
"We
awesome.
got some things wrong," and dude, I was ecstatic. And so a couple months later, I started doing some trips. Went on an MLAT, with I think it was 375, and I'm so glad I did that before I even got there. I did like
Yeah.
two MLATs,
Nice.
sat on the sideline before I even got there, and I was like, "What's this mic, bro? Like, what's this call sign thing?" Because I'm used to 06, and I think just learning the call signs, learning the level of professionalism, learning the culture, learning that, like, oh, I was an evaluator, but man, like you don't know anything. You might as well not even be a JTAC go in there.
All right.
Uh, and then so like literally the first week that I was about to go there, that's when Gav incident happened on the
Mm-hmm.
jump trip, and I was in 375, right? And this is they didn't be like, hey, we got this new first lieutenant, and I was about to get I think I was like a year out. But Dre Vansley was the NCOIC at the time, and it was MLAT time, and I think it was a TFT. And 2 days prior, Gav happened, and so I'm down there like in a TFT, and I can just see Dre is he's on the struggle bus. I'm like, he's just not there, and you're supposed to be doing OC duties for a TFT, and this is the first time I'm seeing DAPs and sixes fly and 101 meters, 100 meters
Sure.
away from the guys, and it's like one on two, and this dynamic environment. And this is the first time that Dre, he was like, man, like I see where you're at. Like I fully trust your skills to take this over. While he can go back and handle stuff like with Matt and Gav's family and
Yeah.
Alyssa. And so, I'm out there. I'm the OC for this TFT. Been there for 2 seconds, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like you're expected to perform at an exceedingly pace that I wasn't used to, right? And
Yeah.
so that's what stood out to me. But man, that was the time of my life. Did 375 for a couple months. I was doing left seat, right seat. I think with Pat. Pat went to like gray team. Did a MLAT or two with 375, and then they didn't want me to be the guy until I put on captain. Like
Mm.
you didn't know how
Yeah.
the culture is with ranks there,
Oh yeah.
and so they were like, "Hey, we want you to go to AST with this next crew and go learn some tactical stuff and lead these guys through." So went to AST. Came back. While I was there, they were like, "Hey, man, like we're gonna put one of the guys in 375." But after talking to some of the guys like Cam and Matt, some Justin, some other guys, they're like, "We want you to go to gray team." And I was like, "Would you be interested in that?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
Yeah. Are you crazy? Of course I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What do
Like
you?
those were the spooks. Like you didn't even talk to those guys at that time.
Right.
I knew Matt because we were at the 14th together.
Uh huh.
But other than that, I didn't know anybody. I knew Justin too. We went to 7 level and we were in Louisiana together.
Oh, okay.
Um, but yeah, that was an amazing time. And for me, the cheat code was I went down there without my family, and so like, man, I I went balls to the wall because I
Yeah.
could. It was probably at an unhealthy level because I don't think it was sustainable with whoever ripped me out. Um, you know what I mean? Because if you had a family, you're like, oh, dude, you're sandbagging compared to what. And it's like, no, he's not sandbagging. He was his family, and
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody to go home to, so
Right.
I had to
I
like,
mean, I've said this on this podcast many times, and I've told a lot of people that job is not for a family guy. I mean, that is not conducive to a family environment. We all did it. I did it. All my buddies did it. But it's hard. It's very difficult. And to your point, if you can, not that you're forgetting about them, not that that they're not that they're less important wherever they were, but it's like going TDY. When you're TDY, nobody's there. You can focus on the mission, and that's
yeah,
kind of what you had. So that I could, and that's the way to do it. I mean, frankly, if you really want to do it right, you got to give it your all. I mean, you got to be all in. So yeah,
yeah,
I can understand how you felt. How you
yeah,
were able to just put everything in the back burner and just go, which is kind
yeah,
of what you need to do, especially in a leadership position like you were. Like those guys, they can kind of get away with maybe having a family because they're on a team and they have their environment. But you as their leader,
yeah,
you can't sandbag. You can't be the weak link. You
yeah,
got to go above and beyond them anyway. So yeah,
yeah. And I mean, you hear the stories, right? Like officers have historically not. I mean, Ben was there. I think Tim was maybe there a little bit, but officers have historically wasn't in foreflight or whatever gray team or whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
uh, for troop. And so like the officer being in there like, what are you doing here? So
right,
now
yeah,
I knew I had that on my back and I had to perform and I had to drive initiatives and support the guys in any way that I can and simultaneously like learn so I could help them out.
sure,
But I think my biggest value proposition was integrating with RSTB,
hmm
you know, integrating with the company, and as the guys are going through RTC and helping them out with backside, whatever they needed. I think that
yeah,
was the best value proposition that I seen. Whether we went on a TFT and it's like, all right, how do you integrate the teams with the air piece or the intel piece with the air piece and things like that. And so we went
right,
to a lot of TFTs and supported that. Or if it's an MLAT now, my MLAT, I'm not with the company now. I'm not with the battalion now. It's focused on the company and like how do we get the company successful while they're doing their things. And I'm at the the C2 element or the fires piece, et cetera. So yeah,
it's like
man.
a different mission than you were used to being,
Oh yeah,
especially the 14th. Definitely, like I think, but having that SF experience, that's
yeah.
similar to what you were doing in Gray Team. So that really kind of helped out, I'm sure, didn't it? Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, at 100% because I knew what an SDR was or a CTR. Like, I mean, we were taking pictures, but it was a very JV level of what we were doing. Like, taking pictures without, a sheath over the camera and flash and shining and stuff. And,
Right.
but, you're like, you're taking pictures with this, this Nikon, whatever.
Yeah.
And there's glare coming off of it, but just those smaller details that kind of RSC had that going places with suits and being professional. I think
Yeah.
that's what I took from it, and I was just like, man, this organization is definitely different. But yeah, I took the coat hells of Matt and Cam and Justin and I knew when to lead and I knew when to follow. I think that was
Sure.
and knew when to listen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and so I went with that and just went hard in the paint as much as I could, and definitely the key of my life. But yeah, finished everything there, and then they pulled me out of the soft world. They're like, "Hey, we need you back." So I went to Hood for like about a year, because I was waiting for some training, and then left left Hood. I was about a year and a half. Actually went to Kuwait, went to Cedar Sodov and Sodov, and this was during the fall of Raqqa. So I was probably like the last 6 months. They were doing the whole drop of Raqqa and
Wow.
in Syria, and so I was at the Sejidov and CJTF level, kind of watching that and watching the task force. We dropped the most amount of. We were running out of munitions during that phase.
That's what I heard.
Like war stop type of stuff, dipping
Yeah.
into it. And so, but that was a definitely an interesting organization, like the Ninth ASOS, man. Like they were working with task force, and that's an ASOS working with Fort Bragg. That was kind of unheard of. You know what I mean? Like you had these guys that they were obviously weren't forward, but they were forward in a C2 and a jock doing the strike cell stuff. And that was pretty cool working with some of the Air Force organizations, GSU units. So I thought that was interesting. Came back and then went to the DC area. I was up there for 4 years, Pentagon, went to school, George Mason, and then, Mark McGill, previous 724 commander, he pulled me back down. I actually wanted to go to Hawaii. And I was like, hey man, I want to go to Hawaii, check it out. Like, he was like, I need you to go back to Fort Bragg. And I was just like, Roger that, boss. He was the career field functional manager. And this was the time that ST got stood down. And we were working some programs through the DC area, specifically to like IADS defeat, like integrated air defense defeat. And so we were working some programs with a lot of organizations in DC, UCOM, etc. And so he was like, man, you're the only person up here that understands what a certain organization at Fort Bragg's trying to do, like in the Air Force. He's like, I need you to go back there and keep running with it. And so I was like,
dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. So came back to Fort Bragg, been here going on 3 years. But yeah, in January, I'll be out. So came back first year, I did sensitive activities for the first year. And then the last 2 years, been a director of operations. So I'm at a special tactics organization. And now, the 17th has been absorbed into that organization.
Okay.
Which is, I think it's good, man. It's long-term. It's good. It shows growth and projection. Are there going to be certain setbacks at certain corners of what we're trying to do? Like, yeah, but like, just long-term growth, like when you look at from a business perspective, like, yeah, there are going to be certain setbacks in certain areas of maybe finance, maybe operations, but like in its totality, like you being absorbed by a bigger beast and like the merger and acquisition, which it was, it's a merger and acquisition. There's going to be some rivalry and some competition within the sales and the units, but at the end of the day, like that's going to fizzle out. And you're now part of those big beasts, and it's probably the same conversations. Like, oh, any day now it's gonna happen. Next year it's gonna happen.
Right.
So we're going on.
No, it's definitely the right trajectory. I mean, like we were in ACC forever, and then all of a sudden we got to go to AFSOC, and that was great.
Yeah.
And then they became an STS, and that was awesome. And so it's as long as we're still trending up, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's going to be growing pains when like when we went to the 24th SAL, it was like that transition period was hard because it was all new, and they were like, well, what do we do with them now? But I think, yeah, like to your point, I think it's going to be great later on. I mean, a decade from now, it's going to be phenomenal, I think.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal now. There are some growing pains.
For sure, 100%. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's definitely growing pains, but it's all internal to us.
Right. It's not growing pains, like it's not detrimental to the mission per se, but it's like, man, I kind of had a little better over here when we're in this situation, but it will get better. It should, yeah.
Yeah, it'll get better, man, over time.
But
like once people work with each other, it'll pan out.
But that was the whole goal when I was there. We did everything with those guys anyway, but we were still kind of out here, in a separate entity. But now that those guys are underneath all the umbrella of those other dudes that we were working with the whole time anyway, I think 100%. It's a lot better. Seems a lot better.
Yeah, it makes it more seamless. 100%. 100%. Now it's just getting Air Force to work with each other, and so that's the rivalry, right? Anytime you have competition in any organization, like there's just going to be you're just going to rub people the wrong way because it's competition for mission that they're
Sure.
doing. They have very similar qualities.
Yeah.
Now the organization, like when you came in, 17th has combat controllers now, which was something that honestly we were trying to advocate when I was at Gray Team, primarily because we would go to MLAT and jump in with somebody that a 2-1 guy, that's some rando,
Exactly. Right.
or a 2-4 guy, and it was like, man, the teams, they didn't know the equipment, they didn't know the SOPs, the jump SOPs, didn't do pro level 1 together, and they
Right.
just caused issues. So now they go out, they have pro level 1s, they jump together. But there's a dichotomy of this CCT and that CCT, and but over time, man, it had panned out.
Yeah.
It's just growing pains.
Yeah. And those guys that we used to work with were not in the unit. Phenomenal dudes. I mean, some people get the wrong impression that we complain about it because they weren't good. They were awesome, but it's be like anything. I mean, it's the same reason why those guys would go to Virginia Beach for 6 months and live there and work with those guys all the time because they didn't want to just glom onto them on a deployment or something. They wanted to get TTPs down. So when you just add somebody to our organization and say, hey, I'm here now, I'm going to control the runway crossing points or whatever, it's like, I got it, but your kit's wrong, and you don't know, anyway. Yeah. So I think to your point, I think it's a good thing having some controllers in the 17th to fill those roles. I mean, we needed them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'll be, man. I still got a couple months. I fully expect. I think these communities are going to remerge.
Yeah.
The way it used to be, probably in the next 10 years.
Okay.
When you look at it, even being in the Pentagon, and I talked to a lot of senior officer controllers and enlisted, and it's just like you can kind of see the writing on the wall.
Just kind of makes sense what they want to do, or
when you look at it from a business standpoint, it's like, why have these two things that can do the same thing? The only reason why you can't is because it says it in a TPS report that
right.
You know what I mean? Like this person can land a plane, and this person can land a plane or control air traffic. Other than that, it's not about like capability. It's just fiscally, it just doesn't make sense to have two separate things and to have different pots of monies and to be in two different conversations. And that's why we created AFSPEC War, at the Pentagon, just because of this same reason.
Yeah. Kind of streamline a little bit, maybe take away the extra stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. The rivalry. But in a nutshell, man, that's, fast forward, and that's where I'm at. And
well, what's the plan now? What are you doing any kind of like transition to? Do you have a job lined up, or you did say something about Microsoft or something?
Yeah, so right now I'm at a Microsoft doing a skill bridge on a penetration testing team, pen testing co-pilot. And funny story where that came from, man, that was probably Justin Foles. It's his fault. We went to a conference. Oh no, we went to a training. It was something that the company put on, and it was like 2 weeks. And it was just like, hey, grab a Raspberry Pi, which is a small Linux computer. You know what I mean? And you can program different things on it. And there was some NSA guys that came in and taught us some things. And they were like, hey, you could, make a server, and if you need to do file upload and send in, and drop this thing in a bush and just walk by it and connect to it, and then keep going, or whatever it may be. And so we were doing that. We were learning how to click cards and for debit cards to pay for VPS, cloud servers,
sure,
to burn them down. So we did that for 2 weeks, and I was like, dude, I was like, these dudes are getting paid like $200,000 a year to do this stuff,
right?
And I was just like, man. And I was like, this is pretty cool stuff. And Fred Tolman, he was one of the guys on the teams back in the day from the RRT. He was super smart in that stuff, and we would just nerd out on some of that stuff because I'm a closet nerd too, man. Like I like IT stuff. Like I like jumping and shooting stuff, but I like IT stuff. I'm more of a MacGyver, type of guy, just problem solving and put the red in the white wire, and hopefully it doesn't blow up, or if it blows up, it blows something up that I want it to.
Right.
fast forward, I started getting some certifications and some pen testing services, and I'd just be smoking a cigar, drinking whiskey, breaking into computers, legally, like on these controlled environments, like Hack the Box and things like that. But it was problem solving, and it was
Yeah.
like, how do I get the information out of this remote server, um, and get access to this computer so I can turn on the webcam and I can see who this person is. Like I've witnessed that in the military. I just didn't know how the hell that they were doing that. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, hey, I just need you to
Yeah.
plug the USB device in this computer, walk away, and then exfil, accordingly, and making sure, and then go back 4 hours later and retrieve the USB device. And next thing you know, you got pictures of people and voice. Like flash to bang. Like, how did that work? So if I try to figure that out with some training, and I did. Again, I'm not a pen tester. I'm a larper, but Microsoft, one of my buddies, he worked at the cyber unit up in DC, SF guy, and he vouched for me. We were going back and forth, and he knew me, and he got hired with Microsoft pen testing, penetration testing, specifically Copilot, which is obviously Microsoft's AI. And
Yeah.
he gave my resume to his boss, and they brought me on, and that's what I'll be doing now during the cohort is doing penetration testing and application security for Microsoft. And so hopefully that leads
That's
into a full
awesome,
time
dude.
job. But we'll see where that goes. But definitely interested in contracting, like my own business. I stood up Hope Solutions, and it was primarily so I can learn business. Like I got an MBA, but that didn't really teach me anything. What taught
Right.
me something was creating a business, understanding profit and loss. How do you bring in revenue? How do you minimize expenses? How do you profit from that stuff? Profit equals revenue minus expense. Like all those algorithms that you learn getting an MBA, like they don't really prove the worth until you actually like do it, and you lose money, and you're like, ooh, I probably shouldn't do that next time.
Right. Like put them
So,
into practice in real life.
100%.
It's almost like more of an education than sitting through class the whole time. I mean, yeah, you get the basics, but
Yeah,
until you see it in the real world, it really doesn't kind of click. I
it
would
doesn't, it
really
doesn't
say.
hit, dude. It's like do it FMP, do a full mission profile,
Right. Right.
and you're like, oh, okay, that's what I should or should not do. So
That's a good analogy
yeah,
because yeah, like the Rangers were never like you could never say like, well, if in a real world situation I would do this. And it's like, no, 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 you will do it now. Like do whatever it is, you're
let
gonna
me
do it
see,
right now. Yeah.
let me see,
Yeah.
yeah, and we're gonna record you.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, in a nutshell, man, that's it. So we'll see where it goes, man. But yeah, appreciate you definitely having me on, man.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. Do you have any initiatives or anything that you're passionate about? I mean, do you have any like charities or anything that you follow or any causes that you're passionate about?
Yeah, man. Honestly, I've been focused a lot recently, domestic violence, primarily because my wife, she just won a pageant. She won like the Miss All American pageant. She's mid 40s, still crushing the gym,
Wow.
still following her cousin. Actually, I was in free fall school a couple years ago, and her cousin, actually, she was our flower girl. She got murdered as a teenager.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
this is 2014, so yeah, 10, 11 years ago. And so like just domestic abuse, been following that a lot, specifically to women. I mean, I'm sure men get domestically abused as well, but primarily focus on women domestic abuse, and how to mitigate that, and then that how that translate into mental health, specifically like men's mental health,
Yeah.
um, which has been like, and I'm seeing like from the and having an 18-year-old now, like just seeing mental health like where it was at our age because we were some sports and we're outside, and how it translates now that these 18 to 22, 23 year olds, their mental health is, I think, different than what we grew up as.
Definitely.
So seeing how you can just get them interested in other things like working out, being active, and how that can prevent domestic abuse either in the future or like where they're at now. So I think
Are you like coming up with? Do you have classes or something, or how are you making manifesting this
yeah.
stuff?
So the domestic abuse, I really follow my wife. She goes to a lot of these courses and talks to a lot of women to when to ID that they're in a potentially bad situation, and then I
Hmm.
just come in from a male's perspective and it's like, hey, from a male's perspective, here's what I'm seeing, and kind of giving my 2 cents as a male of what they need to look at. Specifically for the teenagers, it's just mentorship. So it's my son, he may know a couple of boys, and I'm seeing them not go down the paths that they need to, because I grew up in the ghetto, up until probably fifth or sixth grade. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
see, I'm probably the only one that made it out because of my mom. We went to go stay with a family friend, but on the east side of San Antonio. So I see the paths of where they're trying to go, and I kind of just either not prevent it, but like step in and being like, hey man, let's go back. Let's see, like, what are you interested in? He's like, oh, I'm interested in tech. And I was like, all right, man, here's what tech is, or I'm interested in auto mechanics. All right, I need some work done on my car, and I'm going to pay you to figure this out. Go on YouTube, give you some money, and now a couple of them are in Sand Hills Community College, doing
Yeah.
things. But it's more of that tacit, like just mentoring these young kids, especially these young men, because I think that's a root cause in a lot of these domestic violence is mental health.
Oh, for sure. And I like the way you're doing it because yeah, it's one thing to donate to a charity or speak at a in front of people that are already advocating for it, but you're
Yeah,
actually like touching these lives and like helping real people, change their path. So that's really
full,
commendable, man.
yeah,
That's
full
really
mental
awesome.
health, man. That's kind of what I live by, as opposed to just talking about it, like just
Yeah.
and execute. So
Well, that's excellent. That's awesome.
yeah, man.
And thanks a lot for coming on, man. I appreciate it. I know it was short notice. I was like, between flash to bang, it was pretty
Yeah,
quick, but we nailed it, and I
yeah,
really
dude.
can't thank you enough for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Jeff, brother. I really appreciate it, man. I know I've been hearing about you for ages. You're one of the OGs, so I really definitely admired in the organization, man, and really appreciate you
Well,
having me
it's
on.
that's nice to hear. Now, well, you as well. I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about you.
Yeah, I mean, dudes, honestly, like Mark Foster being at the 14th, like those dudes like that, just like be it seeing how he operates, and that was another plug too. Just
Oh
seeing how they.
yeah,
It's like, okay, like Mark was definitely injury prone. He didn't help me out on that much, but just like his leadership and how he executed as an NCO, I was like, yeah, this is the place I got to be. So
yeah.
I,
Mark's solid,
I, didn't, I,
solid
didn't, I,
dude.
didn't, I didn't get here by myself. So really appreciate
And
it.
none of us do. Yeah, none of
Yeah,
us do. I mean, we all have those laundry lists of mentors that God does. Lunk being one for me as well. I knew Lunk when I first came in. Lunk was at we were kind of stationed together. I was in Arizona, but he was in Panama. But we were in the same unit, and he was a good mentor for me as well. So I know exactly what you're talking about. That's kind of why
yeah,
yeah. So all right, well, hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
brother.
What was the name of your company again?
So Taupe Solutions.
Taupe.
I don't know if it's gonna go anywhere yet. So Taupe, and actually the backstory real quick. I was like, man, I need a freaking name. This was before AI. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was like, what name would I use? And the color brown and gray is taupe. And
makes
so I
sense.
was like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and I was
yeah,
like, the only
smart.
reason why this business started is because I was blessed to be in great team, and I was like, that has to be part of the legacy. If this goes anywhere, or if it's just for tax purposes, like that has to be in the name. So
Right on.
yeah, awesome, JD. I
All right,
appreciate it,
man.
brother. Stay in touch, man.